Welcome back to DR Sports, everyone. Welcome to Talking Tactics. I apologise from the off for my voice. I've been ill, but I'm recovering, and it's all good. But it's always good to see Matisse. Welcome back, Matisse.
Absolute pleasure. We had Abby go down last week with an injury. Now you've gone down with an injury. Guys, the season is a long one, okay? Yes. People are pulling up now. We're almost at the end of it, James.
I've been overplayed.
You've been overplayed?
Sign some depth. I'm joking. No, because
some rotation is needed.
Imagine they sign some depth for this show, and then they're just like, we don't need you.
We don't need you this week, James. It's fine.
That'd be a tough one to take. As was Arsenal's result against Brighton to take. Because I've been proud of this team through thick and thin this season. Obviously because Arsenal played so well for most of it. Yeah. But because even in tough times, take the Man City result, I thought, well, they can do that. They're too good, and you learnt a lesson today. You lose 3-1 at Old Trafford, where you played really well. We lose 3-1 at home to Man City at the Emirates, but we showed a lot of fight. There's been so many moments where when Arsenal haven't delivered in the way I hoped, I've been really proud. Now I'm proud of the season Arsenal have had, but I'm not proud of the way they ended that game against Brighton.
No, it was an absolute capitulation. It's not something I saw coming, because in the first half, I think it was one of those games where both teams needed to rise to the occasion, but you could see Arsenal's press was working quite well. Brighton was struggling to play out. There's a lot of, Brighton trying to play these really crisp, risky passes through the middle, and they weren't coming off. And there were a lot of moments where Arsenal kind of capitalised on that and almost created massive chances. But second half, I can't remember still having to make a save. It was almost like Manchester City came to the Emirates in that second half. They had their half-time team talk. De Zerbi obviously said before the match that the real Brighton will show up, and the real Brighton did show up, because they went up levels in the second half. The way they controlled the game, even when they went 1-0 up, they just continued to keep dictating the tempo. And I was thinking to myself when I was watching it, when was the last time we saw a team outside of the top six go to one of the best teams in the country at the moment and dominate like that? They got into the Etihad, they had more possession. They went to Arsenal now, they dominated possession. Played against United, dominated. Like, I've never seen a team like this who are just so strict and stubborn on playing their way. And some of the passes they play is so risky, but when it works, it's incredible to watch.
Yeah, they are. I was about to swear, they are brilliant to watch. They are. I was about to say effing brilliant. I mean, they are effing brilliant to watch. I haven't been left that frustrated in terms of like.
It's the same thing to us.
I was just screaming.
You do enjoy watching them, but when it's against your own team, you have to snap out of it and think to yourself, I was just damn.
Get the ball. Get the ball. Why haven't you got the ball? It was so frustrating. We may as well have a little look at the two lineups. Because this Brighton team, I mean, there's so much to admire, whether it's the way they play football, whether it's the fact that they don't mind, like they did it in the game, just swapping Matoma and then Ciso, because why not? They're happy to be flexible mid-game like that. Whether it's the fact that Pascal Gross had a run at right back and it was Caicedo in midfield, but in this game, no, it's fine. Caicedo, you can do the job out there. We had players like Thomas Partey, who hasn't been playing well recently, but earlier in the season, when Holding got injured, everyone was saying, well, what about White to centre-back and Partey right back? No, don't do it. You cannot move them out of position. De Zerbi's got no problem doing it, and their performance doesn't drop. They just have a way that is so ingrained in every single player there that however he tweaks and moves things around, whether it's Ferguson leading the line, or it's Undav, or it's, they've had so many players, Welbeck, it just still keeps ticking, and we can learn a lot from Brighton and De Zerbi. Yeah,
it was feeling in a way where football is starting to go into a direction where players can only play in certain zones, certain areas. Even a winger, if they're a touchline winger, or can they come a little bit more central in a 3-4-3? There was so many instances, especially at my club, where I felt like players were so limited. Wingers could only play on one flank. They can't play on the right, but they can play on the left, and vice versa. Now we're seeing in Manchester City this weekend, of course, over the last few months, and in Brighton, where centre-backs are stepping into midfield. You've got midfielders stepping into right-back. You're seeing wingers switching flanks and being comfortable on both. Like, it's a breath of fresh air, because I feel like it's walking away from, being so limited and so caged in and so boxed, and it's making you unpredictable in the case of Brighton. When I saw Caicedo out there, I did miss him in midfield, because I definitely prefer him in there, but you could see why he was probably told to go out there for Martinelli, who obviously came off injured, and then Trossard that came on. But it was it was a brilliant performance in the second half,
it was
especially.
Great.
And
sorry, no, go on. Sorry.
In these two in particular, my Cobham boys, it's nice to see them thriving and playing in a team like this, because I think it's great for their education. Obviously, Colwell's out on loan. I think he was absolutely incredible. Deserved, we gave him a lot of praise after the game. That pass that he played on his left foot for one of the goals out to Matoma was brilliant. So yeah, if you need an education, this is the best team right now in the country to go to.
Yeah, well, I mean, especially when you look at the resources, the players, the amount of players they use to do what they're doing. That was interesting in Caicedo, because yes, he was a right back and he did a really good job against Martinelli and Trossard. But the amount of times that when they're looking to play a pass, Brighton, I'm just moving the players up the pitch a little bit randomly, but if that pass isn't on, we'll give Steele the ball. And you know, centre-back split and all that. It's the amount of times Caicedo was willing to drift in to receive that ball. And you would have a Martinelli or a Jesus there, but he was happy to drift in just to pick up that pass. So you still got him in areas of the pitch you would want him to at times. They just tweaked things tactically, and Arsenal couldn't live with it. But I want to stress that second half in particular. I mean, I actually thought the first half,
I was kind of disappointed with Brighton at times.
Well, I was going to say, a little shameless of me to say this, I thought Arsenal deserved to be ahead actually at half-time and created enough chances to. Now, you got to take those chances. I thought the decision-making from Odegaard was really poor all game. I also thought we lacked real conviction and cutting edge, but the plan to press and invite the ball into Brighton's midfield three, and then Xhaka on Gross, Jorginho, McAllister and Odegaard on Gilmour to step up and try and engage with them, actually worked for Arsenal.
Yeah, 100% it did. And Brighton weren't bypassing the press as well as they did in the second half. In the first half, Steele was taking a lot of touches on the ball. They were constantly trying to funnel it through the middle like they usually do, but Arsenal were absolutely suffocating them. But Brighton would not play long. They would not change the way that they would go about their build-up. They were just forcing these passes, and they were getting dispossessed, and a lot of the passes weren't coming off, or touches weren't completely perfect when they received it, and then suddenly Arsenal were at them. And what I like to see in the contrast with the second half is that Arsenal were always going to be energetic. They were always going to press. They're the youngest team in the league. We know that. They're very, very good pressers off the ball. But Brighton were able to play it into the channels and get Matoma on that left-hand side. I thought he was a lot more dangerous when he moved over. And Ciso and him obviously swapped. And once he got out to White, he just cooked him. And I keep saying it. People say that Matoma in the final third, he does need to improve his shooting. Sometimes he dribbles too much, or he can be a bit selfish. He doesn't release the ball. He doesn't really make a decision. But one thing you can guarantee with Matoma is that he's going to create havoc and he's going to create problems, and he never stops doing that. Did it against Manchester United in the Cup, even though Wan-Bissaka was he was brilliant that day. I think he might have been contender for man of the match. The few times Matoma does get away, he causes and creates opportunities, and that's what he did against White. You know, he squared him up constantly on that side, took him on, and that's where the goal comes from for Enciso. And I think just sometimes with Brighton, they're obviously so ingrained in playing out from the back, but it's nice to see those little clip balls over the press into the second phase, and then to go from there. And that was the difference for me. Yeah,
Arsenal's plan with Tierney with Zinchenko missing and Tierney coming in wasn't to try and replicate the box midfield. It was to try and just have a flat back four, have Tierney overlapping. Arsenal never found him once, I don't believe. And so they tried to defend with more of a sort of a 3-on-3 essentially, which is fine. And like I said, it worked a little bit, but Arsenal can't deal with adversity. And I've been saying this on Tactical Insight on AFTV today as well. Arsenal, in games they've dropped points, where I think we've probably been left most disappointed. Okay, Southampton is one of them, but Arsenal didn't even start that game well. We started really well against Liverpool, we started really well against West Ham, and I actually think we were the better team in the first half in this game. I actually think we were the better team in the first 5 minutes of the second half. I thought we were sort of camped in there, third a little bit, had a few moments. They scored one goal, and the team just deflated. And so when people talk about bottling and all that and throwing it away and nerves getting to the players, I think it's the moment. I don't think it's the occasion. I think the occasion, Arsenal seem to be going out there with a good plan and a good intensity and getting themselves into positions where they could be winning these games. But the moments of adversity when they come, they're not facing them well enough at all. And I have to look at the players more than I look at Arteta for that.
Yeah, no, because setup wise, it was a great competition in the first half. It was a good game. Sometimes it became a bit of a dogfight. We saw that with some of the tackles that were going in, whether it was Martinelli on the first one, then obviously Martinelli receiving as well. So it didn't feel like a kind of like a game on the carpet. It didn't feel like a football game completely. It was a little bit nasty. Yeah, it felt a bit nasty actually in that first half. It was a bit gritty. But I think you're right. When Arsenal have had those issues, and really earlier on in the season, we wouldn't be saying this about Arsenal. So I do think the time that is happening is also relevant in terms of it's now the end of the season. It is in their heads that they are in a title race, and they have seen Everton, absolutely obliterated really by 2 goals in 2 minutes by Man City in the first half. In a game that, again, Everton were competing in. Similar to this game, there was, Everton were doing it in a completely different style. They have 6 across the back, both the fullbacks, Iwobi and McNeil came back, and it was basically a 6-2-2. And as soon as City had that adversity, but they responded to it differently, and they clicked into gear, whereas Arsenal went the other way in the second half. So I think to myself, Arsenal, the timing of the collapse is important, but also you're right, it is moments, and it is, instead of Arsenal going a goal down and going again, like we saw many times at the Emirates this season, now it's going the other way. But there was always going to be a conversation around Arsenal conceding too many goals at the Emirates, even when they played Aston Villa, the 4-2, even when they played Bournemouth, the 3-2. It's too many goals conceded, and now it's come to a head.
I think I've got the list in my head. I think it's only Fulham, Bournemouth, Leeds, Southampton, and then like one other team have conceded more home goals. Than Arsenal.
And this is the fortress. This is like the base. This is where you work from.
Meant to be. But this has also been a trend since day one.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, that Arsenal beat Leicester 4-2 at home, and we said, okay, that's fine.
But don't do that.
Good win, but we need to sort of straighten this out. And really, all season we haven't. We battered Man United at the Emirates, ends 3-2. Bournemouth were good, but we battered Bournemouth in terms of chances and everything. That game ended 3-2.
I know you wanted to make a comparison to the Tottenham team.
Yeah, this 16-17.
Yeah, but also, is this a comparison with the Liverpool team under Rodgers in a way as well?
I think that's a fairer comparison. Well, is it? I mean, what I'd say is, the reason I bring it up, well, also, I think it was Culture Cams who said it, I think on FTBL. I saw the clip going round, I haven't seen the full thing, but First thing I'll say is Arsenal were on course for 90 plus points this season, and that made this team, whether they won it or not, comparable for this season alone with the Liverpools and Cities. Not in terms of, obviously they haven't won what they did, but I'm just saying in terms of points tallies and momentum and relentlessness, and I
whenever you hit 90 plus, you have done an incredible job in the league. Like you've dominated the league. Exactly,
and I felt that this Arsenal group deserved it for a lot of the season. Clearly, the way they're ending it, they don't. 2 wins in the last 7. So it's looking more like they'll end around the 85 to 87 mark, and Tottenham in 16-17 got 86. Now, the reason I'm bringing it up is because A, it was mentioned, but B, that Tottenham team was a very, very good side. I think Arsenal fans acknowledge that.
Yeah.
What that Tottenham team didn't get, though, was the backing to build on top of that. Now, if Arsenal and this Arsenal team are more like that Tottenham team, besides the fact they're rivals and we hate them and we don't want to be anything like them, if you're talking purely the ability of both teams, that's not a team that we should feel ashamed to be compared to. But what we don't want is for that to be the peak, because that was their peak. That's the best Tottenham got in the league. Arsenal now, there's lots of talks about a big summer. There's comparisons to Sean McVay's LA Rams and all that, and the fact that the Cronkies, they missed out on the Super Bowl, they added a load of big players, they went and won it. Arsenal need to add a Declan Rice and a Caicedo, and maybe not both, that's very difficult to do, but a Caicedo, a Rice, players like that, another forward, and then go again. And then that's when Arsenal can then build on what's been a very encouraging season. But this can't be the peak for Arsenal. They need to be able to build from it. I think they will as well.
I think the window you had in January was kind of like a top-up. If you do that in the summer, you won't compete because you have Champions League football. and you need to be able to do as Man City do. People talk about Manchester City's depth. Man City don't have a lot of players. When you look at how many players they have a normal amount of players. In fact, they have less players than a lot of other squads, definitely mine. But when you look at the quality, that is the difference in terms of they take out Grealish, they bring in Foden. They take out De Bruyne, they bring in Gundogan. They take out, Haaland, they bring in Alvarez. The quality that comes into that team. And look, the performance from Gundogan over the weekend was ridiculous. This guy's taking the ball, knee, foot, back of the net. And this is a player that's playing 6, 8, 10. So it's a collective of having players that can play multiple roles, which is what we've just spoke about with Brighton, where players that can play 2 or 3 positions to a high level, but also quality players as well. And that's something that Arsenal need to take a look at. And Declan Rice is one of those players who could play in that role, but could also play in that role, and can do both to a high level. And that's what Arsenal need. Because if Xhaka was to go out, who comes in? Trossard kind of played that Firmino role when Jesus was still on. He's not a Firmino, unfortunately. Like, as much as we've given Trossard great praise for what he's done since he's come in, he's not going to come in and play like a Firmino in a 3-man midfield, which is what he did for Liverpool at times when they won the title. Just Smith Rowe, coming on and Nketiah, it's not enough. Like, it worked against other teams, but it's not enough if we're being serious about, seriously going for a title here.
I agree. Now, we need to move on from this game, but very quickly, I do just want to praise this goal from Brighton, because actually, let me just take it back to the start. They're not man marking here. They're not. They've blocked passes. They've invited a particular pass. They're marking zones. But then when that ball does come in, Gross, who's not even really a part of that initial press, gets there and Undav puts it away. And it's just testament to Brighton, because look who they've ended with on the pitch. Ferguson is the player we talk about, but Welbeck and Undav are there. Buonanotte only got his debut a couple of weeks ago. Gross, who's played right back, centre mid, number 10, 5 different formations. It speaks to the flexibility and the credit.
They also conceded that they would lose potentially Caicedo and McAllister in the summer. It'll be interesting to see who they replace them with.
Well, they started with Gross and Gilmour at the base of the last game, so who's to say that they'll have even any problems in that area. We need to give much more credit to Man City than we're going to in this. I think the reason is because we like to talk about the tactically fascinating things we didn't expect. I think we all expected Man City to win at Everton, although there was a chance at a slip. So Man City fans, if you are watching this, I know you'll be disappointed that we're not giving more credit to City. They're going to win the league, and I think we're going to do a whole actual section on Man City and their title win. But a word on Gundogan, because I know you just said how brilliant he is, but oh my word.
What a player. What a player.
He's so complete. Is there a more complete midfielder in the league?
It's tough to say that there is, because this guy can play as a 6, he can play as an 8, and he can play as a 10. And even at Anfield, a couple of years ago, he played as a false 9, as a striker, and he scored 2 goals away from home. And that was the time where they had a lot of injuries. This guy, no matter what you ask him to do, whether it's, creating opportunities, taking opportunities, coming and starting build up, playing in between the lines, he can do all of it. He's so technically secure. He's an unbelievable player. And for all the goals, he had a hand in it. The assist off the left-hand side, Manchester City were clear in what they were trying to do. They had Foden and Mahrez out on the flanks, and they had these inside runs being made by Alvarez and Gundogan in the half spaces. Haaland barely touched the ball. He barely touched the ball in the first half. He was kind of just that, that person that you keep an eye on, of course, because it's Haaland, but all the play was going around him. And Gundogan was just unbelievable. He took the mantle from KDB and he said, I'm going to run this show. And he just continued to keep making these runs. And it was only a matter of time. For the goal, it's an incredible goal. I think it's one of the goals of the season, the first one. Incredible touch, awareness to just not even look at the goal once and hook it behind him for the finish. But the second goal, he's made that run, he's been found, and he made it a few times. Mahrez didn't spot him on a previous occasion. And left foot, cross, again, weaker foot, clipped into Haaland, inch perfect. Haaland, he has nothing to do but just get his head on it. Pickford's flounder and it's 2. And then the free kick. Again, set piece taker now. If you need him from a dead shot, loops it over the wall, and it's so close as well. Like, it has to be such a cultured finish. There's no power in this. He's just basically dunked it. He's chipped it, and it's into the back of the net again. And I was left speechless. By the time that free kick hit the back of the net, I just said to myself, this guy, if it wasn't for injuries across his career, which I think has really hampered him at times, he would be spoken about as one of the top Premier League midfielders. I think the only reason why he's not is because he is at Manchester City, and I've spoken about this before. With Manchester City, rotation comes at a con to players being given their utmost respect and utmost gratitude because they are so interchangeable and because they're part of something bigger than them. You know, when we talk about the greats, we talk about players that were instrumental in their teams. Gerrard, you know, if you take him out of the team, it's folding. You can't say that about Gundogan. You can't say that about anybody in this City team because they've got so much quality depth that anybody that comes in does a great job. Anybody that goes out, it's okay. And I've seen City win titles without De Bruyne. De Bruyne being injured for half a season, they still go and win it. Yeah. So I think that's the main issue as to why people will say that a Gundogan won't get the flowers that he deserves. But when you watch him and when he does contribute for the games he's given, he's outrageous.
He's not signing a new contract, is he?
I think Man City this summer, if they're losing Bernardo Silva and Gundogan in the same window, I think that's a massive loss to Pep. Yeah. You know, that cannot replace teary-eyed moment. I'm not saying you cannot replace, but you may see some more tears at the end of the season from Pep about those two, because you're talking about players that can play different positions and different roles. These two are as versatile as they come. We've seen Bernardo Silva pick it up from left back, right wing, 10, double pivot, in between the lines. Like, it's ridiculous, but these guys are such intelligent players. It's not just about being good enough technically, it's about being intelligent enough to know in what part of the pitch what you need to do and kind of dig into that list of attributes that you have and deploy it in that area. And a lot of people can't do that. A lot of people, they play one position, they just focus on that, and they think to themselves, right, that's my job, and I can't tailor my skills to other areas, and that's where people become limited. These two, no.
Agreed. I was watching the Everton Man City game thinking to myself, you know, let's see, come on Everton, you started well, and then Gundogan scored that goal, and I just went, what's the point? Not because
he's wearing the armband when he done it as well.
Not because City were 1-0 up, and you know, usually that means game over, but because I thought, are you kidding me? He goes back to goal. The defender's done nothing wrong. Just
individual
thigh,
brilliance.
Touch, spin, back of the net, flick it like it's nothing. I thought, well, forget it.
But that's what you need. When you're going up against a defence of 6, a back 4 and both the fullbacks coming back,
quality.
You need individual quality, and that is what they have in abundance. So when the system fails them, they have the individuals to prop up and do something crazy, whether it's a company long shot or it's this in this season. Like, this is what they do, and they do it every single year, so it's of no surprise. Yeah,
like I said, we'll talk more about Man City when they win the title, which is pretty inevitable, unfortunately.
Next weekend.
Did you watch Leeds versus Newcastle?
I did get to see it.
Interesting game, I thought.
I think Newcastle are like the Atletico Madrid almost of this league. I think we've seen Brighton dominate teams in like a top team, and Newcastle are kind of the opposite, where they're not dominating, but they are a handful. And you compared them before we started filming with Liverpool, and I agree with you in the sense of, especially when they're at home as well, when you face Newcastle, you feel like you're coming into a cauldron, you feel like you're coming into an Anfield, and they're very like hectic from get-go, and they just try and rush you and almost beat you up in the first 15 minutes. But they don't have control over games, and that's what you've touched on. And when you said that to me, I'm not surprised, because when you look at Joe Linton, when you look at Willock, Longstaff usually plays in there. It's not a midfield that kind of screams control. The only midfielder that could be part of that is probably Bruno Guimaraes. And even he, in some games recently, I've been like, oh, come on, you're not at your brilliant best here. But they don't have an adequate replacement for him whatsoever. Even Shelvey, who they let go of in January, maybe could have brought control. He was a bit of a hothead, to be fair to him, but on the ball, he was a very good passer. So I think Eddie Howe's playing in that manner because of who he has, not because it's not what he is capable of coaching.
I was watching the Leeds game, and look, they went 2-1 up, and it's 2 penalties. But watching the game, going, and you got to think, I'd just seen them try break down Arsenal the week before, and I was sitting there thinking, come on, Newcastle, stop. Show me some invention. Show me some ideas. A little bit of build up, a little bit of alternating of positions, not just Isaac gets the ball and try to run through, Willock gets the ball and try to run through you. Let's hit the wings, hit the channels, go long, cross into the box. And I was watching it thinking,
they've got a lot of ball carriers.
Right. And this is, I always say the words, don't form an opinion based on stats. Have an opinion and then go see if the stats back it up. And thank you so much to the analyst, because their stats absolutely backed up what I was thinking. So this might be a little small for you guys. I'm going to talk you through it, but basically we've got all the Premier League clubs scattered across. Now, if you're in the top left, it means your football style is more fast and direct. and if you're in the bottom right, it's more slow and intricate. So in that area, you got Manchester City, you've got Arsenal, Brighton, Chelsea nearer to them as well, Liverpool in that area. Newcastle, however, rank more towards the Brentfords, Bournemouths, West Hams, Leeds of this world. So they have a much more fast and direct approach to playing the game than Leicester, Tottenham, Man United, Arsenal, Liverpool, whoever else it might be. Go check out the AND list for more details around this particular graphic, which we took from there. This also via the AND, apologies, it's a very, anyway, it's not great quality image, but you can see what you need to see. The football pitch, from left as defence to right as attack. And what you've got here is the areas of the pitch that Newcastle United control. This is the third best team in the league.
Yeah.
The league table tells us, and rightly so. They don't have any control of the pitch in these kind of central areas, in the zone 14s, in what the attacking third begins to be, except for, out in wider areas. But other than that, they don't really have control of any of those central areas nearer to goal in the opposing half. So I go through some of their rankings in the league. In terms of passes attempted, passes per sequence, 10 plus pass sequences, build-up attacks, short pass completion, they're in the bottom 10 for all those things. 14th for 10 plus pass sequences in games. But for direct attacks, they rank second, attempted take on second, set piece shots first, set piece XG first, and passes per defensive action third as well. So the thing I'm trying to say is there is no right way to play the game.
No.
There absolutely is no right way to play the game. They are fantastic at this, and they're not very good at that. But most teams that are at the very, very top of football, they are able to display control.
A lot of this, yeah. I think it comes from two things. I think it comes from the fact that Newcastle have surprised a lot of teams this season, and Eddie Howe's been very humble in the fact that he's willing to sacrifice possession at the Emirates, and he's not willing to go toe-to-toe to try and, match you in that kind of dominating the ball kind of situation. He's more than happy to relinquish possession and counter. And I think so other teams have not come to Newcastle and parked the bus, so to speak, and forced you to have that possession and forced you to play more passes to get to goal. A lot of teams have come at Newcastle because it's Newcastle and we didn't expect this, and Newcastle therefore been able to have more of an open game with them. So I think it comes from that. I also think it comes from obviously playing to your strengths, and when you look at St. Maximin's and you look at Almiron at the start of the season before the World Cup, and you look at Isak who's come in, these are brilliant carriers of the ball and brilliant runners of the ball, and they're brilliant players that take on and they're brave. And I think if you were to take your time with possession a little bit more and slow the tempo down, I think those players I don't think it would suit them. I think it suits them to have those literal rock and roll type Liverpool situations where the game is a little bit more open, or Liverpool are sitting, Newcastle are sitting a bit deeper, but then when you get the ball, you've got acres of space to run into, and we're really attacking at top speed. And that's what we've seen with Salah, we've seen with Mane, and we've seen it with Newcastle in that respect, in terms of just going full throttle in that situation and not being so patient. But like I said, I don't think the midfielders are tailored to it. I think if you're going to go with more control, you'd have to get rid of a Willock and a Longstaff and bring controllers in and bring top midfielders in, which is what they don't have. I think they've done a brilliant job, but they are again suited to off the ball kind of pressing and getting amongst it and making it more of a combative physical battle, and then carrying the ball as well, which they've done pretty well. But if you're looking for cut edge passing, I know we saw Willock against Tottenham with an unbelievable pass, but that is kind of one in a million pass. It's not something that he does on a regularity. So I think the midfield will be tailored more to this side of, if they want to play this way. If maybe Eddie Howe will decide not to, he might not.
Yeah, and look, the show's called Talking Tactics. I think all year we've been praising Newcastle without fully quite understanding what makes them so good. But I hope we've just shed some light on their not passing style, but on their style, on how they approach games and why they've been very good this year. But where they struggled against Leeds, they couldn't break them down. I think you need to be better at that side of the board, because that side of the board's been met physically and with good organisation, and they didn't have an answer. It brings us to Leeds though, who I do think have shown a new energy, a nice energy under Sam Allardyce. I think he's been on top form, by the way, since he arrived in the Premier League and press conferences. And that point gives them a fighting chance. It
does, but I still think they're in serious trouble of going down. I look at Everton's fixtures and they're favourable, and Leeds are certainly not. You know,
But what about Forest?
Forest have extended a gap on Leeds of
4 points.
3 points. It is, which is vital with 2 games left. 3 points is a lot. So I look at Leeds and I think to myself, are they really going to be able to pick up enough points to get themselves out of it? Obviously,
they need one win, and they need Forest to lose one.
Yeah, they play West Ham away on the final. Well, they play West Ham away next, and they play Tottenham at home. They could get results.
I think they're winning one of them.
They could get results against these teams, because Tottenham, as we've seen, they're kind of falling off a cliff a little bit in terms of aspirations for Champions League. They're now looking maybe even not get Europa. They might get Conference. And West Ham are you know, they're unpredictable now. They're basically on the beach. Their season's done. So there is a chance for them, but I do think that they're in trouble. Them and Leicester, I think it could stay that way. I think Everton are not the team to look at because of their fixtures. I think it is Leeds that they will need to look at. Forest, but they have a 3-point buffer. So
I think if Forest go winless, but listen, Arsenal are handing out wins apparently now. So
they've got a very important point against us. You guys are out of the title race now. They're at the City Ground.
Do you have Forest's final game there?
Crystal Palace away.
I think there's a good chance Forest lose to both us and Palace.
It'll be interesting
away.
to see how Arsenal players react now to not being in a title race anymore, because the title.
Arteta slated them. I think they'll turn up. Yeah. Well, I hope they do. If they don't, whatever.
And also, just to add on to this as well, I think a key part of this that I forgot to mention is Nick Pope. Nick Pope does not play out from the back. He's very poor on the ball.
That's a very good point.
When you look at Brighton, when you look at City, when you look at even Kepa will be comfortable at times receiving, like just any of those teams that we saw in that graph. If you haven't got a ball playing goalkeeper, you're more likely to go long, which means you're more likely to get into that back and forth kind of situation as well. And I think that plays a part as well.
That's a very, very good point. You're right. Cool. I want to talk about Brentford to round off the show. Just a final word, because we live in a world where De Zerbi and Brighton have been unbelievable. O'Neill kept Bournemouth up and no one expected it. Eddie Howe's carried Newcastle into the top 4 within basically 18 months of management. And Arteta put together a very unlikely title challenge, and all these managers are going to get a lot of credit, even Ten Hag, because it's Man United, there'll always be a story. But Thomas Frank and Brentford this season, I mean, they've just been superb, and they are doing it from probably the lowest starting point, really, in terms of the clubs that are achieving so well. So don't mind, I'm just going to go through some of these stats, but the ones on the left I really, really like is that the players used in the Premier League, 19th. Only Man City have used fewer players. New signings used, they rank 15th. Their spend across this whole season, they rank 18th, but their position in the table is 9th.
It's insane, isn't it? They're just a bus stop. They don't want the attention, they don't want the limelight, they're just a bus stop, that's what they keep telling me. They are a very well-equipped team. Thomas Frank deserves a lot of credit, and they always make it a tough game. Some of our toughest games are, even prior to this season, every game's been a tough game this season, but prior to this season, Brentford were a problem. They were a problem at the Bridge last season, they were a problem at their stadium as well. It was literally like fighting tooth and nail to try and get out of there with something. Mendy had to drop an absolute masterclass. They are just, and they went to the Etihad, I think, as well this season. Did they win, if I recall? So they are just a really good outfit. I do look forward to seeing what they do without Ivan Toney. I think they've shown that Mbeumo can get amongst the goals, and he has chipped in, but he is a massive part of this team. Ivan Toney, he's a quality player, not just from a goal scoring standpoint, but just in terms of his overall game, the way that he's able to link up play. He's a great passing range on him. He's very physical as well. If you want to go long, go direct, which they've done quite a lot of times. They've gone to the front 2 and built up from there. So they'll have to replace a very well-rounded striker who gives goals, deadly from the penalty spot, as we know, brilliant at hold up, very strong, and like I said, can create as well. So
their recruitment team's good. They replaced Ollie Watkins with Ivan Toney, so they know what to do.
Imagine Ollie Watkins and Ivan Toney up front together. That would be
bad, would it?
Perfect, wouldn't it?
I just feel like they haven't been given as much credit as they deserve, and it's because there have been so many other incredible stories, and even stories of the clubs that haven't done well. It's been an unbelievable Premier League season. I know we'll reflect on it, but only Man City, Arsenal and Newcastle have lost less games in the Premier League this season. Shows you how difficult they've been to beat. Their Their actual home record this season in 18 games, they've won 9 of them, drawn 7 and only lost 2. They've conceded less goals at home than Arsenal this season, and only Man City and Liverpool have lost fewer home games this whole season. They've only lost 1 each. They've lost 2. So really, really impressive. Brentford and Thomas Frank, well done to them. I think that's it. Matisse, any final thoughts? Or
I think me and you now are on the same page. Just end the season. Just get it done. Do you know what I mean? Like we have exhausted our resources. We are.
You know what I actually do want to see? Genuine answer to that. Season, it's going to end soon, whatever. But I'm not on this like. Well, I'm happy the season's ending in that it's been so exhausting, and I think everyone needs a break, and we go again. Arsenal in bad form now with that defeat, blah blah. But I want it to be a hard, fast summer for Arsenal now. I want within 3 weeks of that Premier League being over, there's a signing on the brink. Like it's got to be. That's what Liverpool did, I think, when they brought in Fabinho, Alisson. It was quick, like
early doors, so they're ready for pre-season.
Get them in, and end what was ultimately a very encouraging and very good season with
excitement.
Because
I think you could go either way now. It's like you've had a great season in terms of you've overachieved in the league. I think the cups are a massive disappointment because I think this team should have been leaving with something in terms of a trophy. So there is this lingering disappointment and almost flashbacks to, okay, nice team, and Arsenal have had nice teams under Wenger, but didn't build on that. In fact, had to sell. I don't think you're going to sell. You don't have a fire sale because the stadium situation is sorted. However, if you don't build on this with top players and you just get fillers, I think the mood going into next season could be quite negative again. And it usually starts off quite negative in the Arsenal fan base because of the disappointing transfer windows. This season was a bit different because obviously Zinchenko, Jesus, you battered us in the friendly.
This season, Arsenal fans, they rode the wave, and let's keep that wave going, let's keep that momentum going. But of course, we'll do talking tactics over the summer. I think as new signings come in, it's going to be very interesting to see how they all stack up. But of course, we've got plenty to talk about with Man City winning the title, the top 4 race to be finished, the relegation battle, more to come in the coming weeks. We will be here on Talking Tactics. So hit the like button if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel as well. Get in the comment section. We see your comments. We would love to know your thoughts on your team, how they're doing. If there's anyone out there, a bit like Brentford, who haven't been given enough credit, let us know. We'll give them credit. We'll see you in a bit.